Urgent Washington Commanders fans. Do not miss this. What just happened? You won't believe this one. But before we reveal the big news, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because here, we bring you daily videos with the latest Washington Commanders updates. And to not miss anything, activate the notifications. Alright, folks, today we've got some intriguing, if not quite surprising, news swirling around the Washington Commanders and their ongoing quest to bolster the defense, especially the pass rush. It's a story that's been developing behind the scenes, and it involves one of the most talented, yet somewhat enigmatic, players in the NFL right now, Trey Hendrickson. Now, for those of you who follow the NFL closely, you know Hendrickson's name is synonymous with explosiveness off the edge, relentless effort, and a knack for getting to the quarterback. But the question that's been on everyone's mind lately is, could the Commanders still make a push for him? Could they actually pull off a trade for this star defender from the Cincinnati Bengals? The buzz is intense, and I've been digging through the sources, talking to insiders around the league, and trying to piece together what might actually happen in the coming weeks. Let's set the scene first. The Commanders have been actively exploring options at outside linebacker and defensive end since the offseason began. They know how critical this position is, especially in today's NFL where passing games are so potent and defensive pressure can make or break a season. They've been linked to numerous free agent pass rushers, such as Von Miller and Zadarius Smith, and even some younger players in the draft. But one name keeps popping up in the rumors, and that's Trey Hendrickson. Why? Well, it's because Hendrickson is not just a good player, he's a game changer. Since joining Cincinnati, he's been a consistent force, racking up double-digit sacks in multiple seasons, and proving time and again that he can be a difference-maker in high-pressure situations. But here's the twist, some people speculated that the Bengals might be moving on from Hendrickson after drafting Shamar Stewart, a talented edge rusher out of LSU. Many wondered if that signaled the end of Hendrickson's era in Cincinnati, but sources close to the NFL tell a different story. From what I've gathered, the Bengals are still very much interested in keeping Hendrickson. Diana Russini, a well-respected NFL insider, reported that Cincinnati is actively trying to re-sign him and is hopeful that they can reach a new deal before the season begins. And that makes sense because Hendrickson has expressed publicly that he doesn't want to leave Cincinnati. At least, not unless the right financial package is on the table. He's been quite clear about his desire to be paid what he deserves, and that's understandable. After all, he's been a key piece of that Bengals defense, especially in their recent playoff runs. So, the perception that he's on his way out might be premature. But let's be real, NFL teams are always looking for ways to improve, and the Commanders are no different. Now, the big question is, can Washington still make a move for Hendrickson? And if so, what would it cost? Well, that's where things get really interesting. The Commanders, as we all know, have some limitations when it comes to draft capital. They traded away their 2026 second and fourth round picks in the deal for Laramie Tunsil, which means they are already operating with a somewhat sparse draft arsenal. Currently, they only hold 5 draft picks in the upcoming NFL draft, and that's going to make any trade for a player like Hendrickson quite challenging. To acquire him, Washington would probably need to offer a substantial package, likely involving a first-round pick in 2026. But would they be willing to do that? That's the million-dollar question. Many insiders believe that giving up a first-round pick for Hendrickson might be a stretch, especially with so many other needs on the team and the limited draft capital they have. The team might have to get creative and consider trading future picks from 2027, but even then, convincing the Bengals to part with a player of Hendrickson's caliber in exchange for draft capital in the distant future could be a hard sell. Cincinnati is eyeing the window with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins at their peak. They want to maximize this core and believe Hendrickson is a vital part of that puzzle. So, it's unlikely they'll part with him easily, unless the price is just too good to pass up. In fact, some reports indicate that Cincinnati is still very optimistic about re-signing Hendrickson. According to Russini, the Bengals are hopeful that they can agree on a new contract soon, which could keep Hendrickson in Cincinnati for the foreseeable future. That would be a major blow to the Commanders' hopes of acquiring him before the season kicks off. But, of course, we all know how NFL negotiations go. Sometimes, a player's situation can change rapidly if a team offers an enticing deal or if Hendrickson himself pushes for a change. So, what does all this mean for the Washington Commanders? Well, at this point, it seems pretty unlikely that they'll be able to trade for Hendrickson before the start of the season. The financial and draft capital hurdles are significant. Still, that doesn't mean they're giving up entirely. Washington might have to wait until the trade deadline or even next offseason to make a serious push for him. Alternatively, they could opt to develop their current roster and focus on drafting the next generation of pass rushers in the 2026 draft, players like the next big edge rusher who can become a franchise cornerstone. But don't forget, the Commanders have a solid defensive line core already. Players like Jonathan Allen, Darren Payne, and Montez Sweat give them a strong foundation. They've also shown a willingness to sign veteran pass rushers to add depth and experience. Names like Zadarius Smith and Von Miller are still floating around as potential short-term solutions, especially as bridge players who can help the team contend in the short term while they develop youth and look toward the future. Looking at the bigger picture, this situation with Hendrickson highlights the strategic balancing act that the Commanders face. Do they push all in and try to land a star now, risking future draft capital? Or do they build more gradually, develop their young players, and wait for the right opportunity? It's a tough call, but one thing is clear: Washington is clearly aware of the importance of upgrading their pass rush. They've been aggressive this offseason and seem determined to improve in that area. Whether that's through a trade, free agency, or the draft, they know how critical it is to get that pressure on opposing quarterbacks, especially in the NFC landscape, where a dominant pass rush can be the difference between a deep playoff run and an early exit. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate what Trey Hendrickson brings to the table. This guy isn't just a sack artist, he's a relentless competitor with a motor that never quits. His ability to rush the passer from multiple angles, combined with his athleticism and football IQ, makes him a nightmare for offensive lines. Plus, his leadership qualities and experience in high-stakes games add a lot of value to any team. For the Commanders, who are looking to take a step forward and challenge the NFC powerhouses, adding a player of Hendrickson's caliber would be a significant upgrade. But, as we've discussed, the logistics and financial considerations are complex. The Bengals want to maximize their window with Joe Burrow and their talented core. They're not just going to give away Hendrickson, even if they'd like to keep him. The negotiations are ongoing, and the landscape can change quickly. Sometimes, a team's stance shifts as the season approaches, or a player's contract demands evolve. So, the possibility remains open, but it's probably more in the realm of a potential future move rather than something imminent. In the meantime, the Commanders will likely focus on what they have. They've got depth on their defensive line, and developing young players or signing veterans as stopgaps makes sense. It's also worth noting that their draft strategy might shift, aiming to find a future star in the upcoming drafts, those elusive franchise-defining pass rushers that can transform a defense overnight. The NFL is constantly evolving, and teams that can strike a balance between immediate impact and long-term development often find the most success. And let's not forget that the NFC is incredibly competitive. The Eagles, 49ers, and Cowboys all have formidable defenses, and the Commanders know they need to elevate their pass rush if they want to truly contend for a playoff spot and beyond. A player like Hendrickson could be the piece that makes all the difference, but whether that will happen this season remains to be seen. What's clear is that Washington is not sitting idly by. They're exploring all options, and even if the Hendrickson trade doesn't materialize right now, their pursuit of a top-tier pass rusher shows how serious they are about improving their defense and making a real push in the NFC. So, fans, keep your eyes peeled. The NFL offseason is full of surprises, and the Commanders are no strangers to making bold moves when the time is right. Whether it's through trades, signings, or drafting the next great pass rusher, they're determined to get back to the top and challenge the league's best. And remember, the season is just around the corner, with training camp and preseason action heating up, so everything can change in the blink of an eye. pause here, just for a second. If you want the YouTube algorithm to keep recommending the latest Washington Commanders news to you, it's super important that you leave a like on this video. Go ahead, it's quick, and it makes a big difference. Thank you. Now, let's continue with the big reveal. Looking ahead, I think the focus for Washington should be on their internal development and strategic signings. They have the pieces in place to be competitive, and with some smart moves, they could be a real threat in the NFC. The defensive line, in particular, is a strength, but adding that extra edge rusher who can consistently pressure quarterbacks like Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, or Kirk Cousins could elevate the entire defense to another level. The NFL is a game of inches, and sometimes, acquiring that one-star player can mean the difference between a first-round exit and a deep playoff run. And now, Washington fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on the Trey Hendrickson situation? Do you think the Commanders should push hard to trade for him, even if it means giving up a lot? Or do you believe they should focus on developing their current roster and drafting their future stars? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the team. We love hearing what you think, and your insights help keep the conversation alive. Plus, I'll be back soon with more updates, rumors, and analysis, so stay tuned, because the NFL season never really stops, especially when it comes to the Washington Commanders. In conclusion, this whole Hendrickson saga underscores how unpredictable and exciting NFL offseason moves can be. The Commanders are clearly in the mix, eyeing a potential upgrade that can push them over the edge. Whether that's through trade, free agency, or waiting for the right draft pick, one thing's for sure, the team is committed to improving its pass rush and making 2024 their breakout year. So, keep the faith, stay engaged, and let's see how the story unfolds. Because, at the end of the day, the NFL is all about the drama, the strategy, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. And for Washington fans, this is just the beginning.